Very sweet. Very sweet.
Yeah.
The cherub baby who thought he could fly, might I add, piling up all the cushions on the couch and like, whee! Your mom was always so afraid that someone would call her out because parts of you were always purple. Always.
I remember jumping out of the tree in front of that one house we had, just jumping
Do you
out.
remember you got me in trouble when you came to visit me and you were climbing up in the tree at my work when I was a nanny? I don't know how old you were.
I don't remember
Okay,
that.
well you came to visit us. Do you remember that? No, when I was a nanny for the twins and we were living in Middletown, and it was just after I sold the daycare or got departed ways with the daycare. And yeah, you were coming in to work with me, just staying with us for like a week, and you climbed up to the top of their tree, and my boss was not happy about that at all. And I knew you were not ever going to get yourself in a situation that was unsafe for you. I totally trusted you. My boss, not so much.
Hi, Billy, get that child out of a tree.
But that kind of reminds me that I was watching Ed and Ruth last night of this upload that Emily has sent me, which is a complicated interview with them at the end of their lives, talking about difficult things. But one thing that Ed is talking about is about the famous story about him climbing a water tower when he's 3. And
Oh my.
yeah.
Enjoy
And then he went later to look at it, and that it wasn't really that high.
Oh, Ed.
But he has that reputation in the family, and as you read the letters, he's the rascal in the family.
Mm-hmm.
He's the one, that gets himself in trouble all the time. Whereas the older brother, he's like supposed to carry this thing, this weight, and he does try to carry it. He tries to go into his father's footsteps and become a minister, but he's never very successful at it. He struggles with it mightily and cracks, basically, has a lot of mental health issues. But you just see him like trying, when you see as the process of the letters goes, he's trying so hard to do something to help his dad, to make his dad proud, and his dad is never proud of him. That he never wins. And that's, I guess, the sad part about the story is like, I think I told Mom in the beginning, well, we don't have to worry about how the story goes because we know we're here. And then I'm like going, all right. So we're here and we still don't know how the story goes somehow. But it's all complicated.
Indeed.
Anyway, but yes, Ed was the goof off. He was the younger brother, and so he didn't have the same responsibilities the
As
older
the
brother
older.
had. Yeah.
So
he
what were the family nicknames? Ed, who was Ed?
Right.
Gooflet.
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 She remembers something else, but it was either Goofty. When he's first born, he's Goofty all the time. But yeah, so that's kind of like part of the story is that he's not expected. Well, how much can you expect of Gooflet? Anyway, right?
Precisely, right?
Yeah.
You gotta love that it's goofty or gooflet and oopy.
I know, the oopie.
They really like the double O's.
Yeah, they do.
Well, there's something really loving in that sound of ooh. JT is always boopy or oopy or...
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
something about
You
ooh.
did always call that.
Yeah.
She still does.
I do, and when I dictate, I say boopy, and it comes up poopy.
Oh, I
And
know.
Sometimes I don't
I know.
catch it.
Same
and
thing.
It makes me mad.
No, it's crazy because we've been trying to transcribe these letters, and it's always you never can hear the oop ever. It turns into poop or something, but it never likes. You can't teach it the oop. Yeah.
Oopy. Yeah, and Grandma Oopy.
Yeah.
And it was just oop. Like in letters, it wasn't oopy. It was just oop.
Well, it's any kind of oop that wants to be. And one
Oopie.
of the recent letters, she signs herself OOPEE.
Oopy.
Yeah. And because it usually had an I, but she was very playful. Ruth was, trying to kind of turn things around and have all sorts of little short, like everybody, just the way that she like plays with language is definitely in there.
I did not know her as a playful person.
No, that's why I've loved these letters, is the side of her where she really wants to take care of Mom and she's trying to be this mother figure, but she'll like even say to her mom.
Compared to.
Oh, she's 4 years older,
Okay.
Like me and Betsy.
right? So here's Mom,
Yes.
right? So Mom is 15 when they leave, 15, 16, 17. She's 15. She's just turned 15 when they leave. Okay, so Ruth is 19. when
And
your
she's
parents.
writing letters when she's 15 years old.
Oh,
There was no phone.
There was always
I-
there was. She's writing letters when she's 8 and 12. I mean, she's had her parents away, one or the other of
Yeah.
them. They've not lived together except for like tiny little times, like
Extensive,
you know, a
yeah.
couple 6 months at a time kind of
Yeah.
thing. But they've never really been a nuclear family.
Yeah.
But they don't expect that of themselves either, because they've never done it, so they wouldn't know they had to do it. Because it's worked out okay for them to like go, oh well, you stay with Aunt Helen, you stay there. You know, they'll just wherever it was convenient to go.
It's so weird to think how that much shifted between like that's where grandma grew up, and then like having all the stories that my mom gives of her having this really nuclear family, kind of like she's always parted upon, and then the divorce happened and it tore the nuclear family apart and rendered it asunder, and all the kids went in different directions.
I know.
You know, and then my mom having, you know, us as kids, and, you know, having that solid family connection for the entire existence of me and Heather growing up at home was so crucial to my mom. You know, like she fought with my dad a lot, but keeping together as a family was more important than anything else. You know, and
Right.
how, like, just like seeing all the different stages of like the 3 different family segments of, you know, like no family, a little bit of family, and then my family being just all together. And
Yeah.
you know, looking back on it, going, you know, would I have grown up better if my family had actually maybe split apart earlier or
Right,
something? You know,
right. Because the staying together, which got to be the biggest deal, maybe wasn't so helpful or healthy or something.
Yeah, or healthy
Yeah,
or whatnot. But
yeah.
you know, you look at my parents' marriage now, you know, and they're fantastic. You
Yeah.
know, so was it just us kids, you know, being a
Well,
thorn in the
well,
side
it was
more
the
than-
job, the mission
Yeah.
of a family. Maybe was too hard, but when they're not on that mission anymore,
Yeah.
then there's something okay
You
about it.
guys, you have
Yeah.
to acknowledge that they went through a journey.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
and you
Yeah.
were such an integral.
You can't
part
just
of
cut,
that
jump
journey.
over it and go, oh,
Yeah.
well, forget that part. That's not important, right?
Right.
That child raising part. Yeah.
And it's interesting that you would say that description about that the family, like Laura was 18, Keith was 20. They had already gone out of the house.
They
Yeah,
had
but my mom
flavor.
was 15, I think,
know.
when it happened.
Yeah, and see,
so that's-
yeah, Betsy's more on the cusp, and Wendy definitely wasn't grown. And so all of Bob and Alice together, that was Wendy's story too. It just wasn't my story. You know, I was already ready to launch. So that's the thing too about when Mom's parents go to Liberia when she's 15 and Ruth is 19. That's different too.
Yeah.
Alice, even though she's been independent a lot of her life at 15, she's still in her mind thinks she's the baby. Well, she's been told she's the baby. And how can the baby be left at 15 to
I mean, her
fend for
nickname is
herself?
Dave,
It doesn't
you know,
really make sense. So she like struggles with it. She writes like, "Oh, I don't have a home anymore, and these people, they're not really my family, and you know, they don't even really treat me like family, you know, and they're
My
not
mom
very
talks about
physical
that too, when
anyway."
She's like, oh, I had to move out of house because house no longer existed, and
Yeah.
you know, I lived on campus, and then my dad kind of lived with me during some of that time period, and I jumped from roommate to boyfriend to roommate. You know, like that was just like this traumatic time between her being 15 and her being like 25 or something. That whole high school finishing college part of her life was just this traumatic family falling apart at the seams sort of like
Yeah.
existence for her.
An
Right.
unusual level of drama, one must say.
Yes.
An unusual level of drama at best.
Well,
And like her comparing like maybe what her family situation was like with like the culture norms where like families didn't get divorced and families stayed together, and you know, her being ashamed that her family got divorced and things.
Shame and guilt and all of that has
Yeah.
a really big role to play in all of this. And I think Mom, all my life, Mom has talked about conversations that she would have with these same siblings who are all singing together, right? Talking about how they would all get together and discuss the whole right and wrongness of missionaries having children. And the thing that Mom has had, she developed her attitude toward the story a long time ago about how she feels when her siblings say, you know, this is not really very helpful to children. This was a bad idea. We're not wanting to make that judgment call that her parents had a bad idea. And certainly she is the product of the 5th child in a marriage that wasn't a standard way, it wasn't nuclear, it wasn't what we all
Stable.
think
It
of.
was not
It was not
stable.
stable for them, but Mom believes she turned out okay. Okay, And so she does think somehow we have to make the story right.
Yeah.
And she can hear her siblings all complain, gripe, whine about it.
Yeah.
And she knows not only that part of the story, she knows really deeply that the grandmother, Frank's mother, because Clara's mother had died and her stepmother died early in the story and she wasn't as vested. Frank's mother, Monty, was not a shy person. I would say Betsy probably has a lot in common with Monty.
Mm-hmm.
Monty was a big, loud, I mean, I'm not big in size, but it seems like I never met her, but I would say from her letters and the reflection I see of her is she was a very opinionated person and was not going to be shy about complaining about how her son was messing things up. And he did terrible things, and he had this huge family, and he wasn't supporting them, and he leaves them all over the place. She did not approve of her son.
Well,
but at the same time, when she had a one-on-one with her son, she wouldn't say that to him to his face.
But she would.
That was her beloved son. She only had one son. So she would say sweet things to him. But behind his back, to anybody else who would listen and people who didn't even want to listen, and Mom would go and visit her because her dad said, his dad's in Africa, Dad says to this little girl, 15, 16 years old, go visit Grandma. Grandma needs you. And she went to visit Grandma. And what does Grandma do? Guess what Grandma does?
Poison.
Constant abuse about how terrible your parents are, how your parents are so abusive. We have no use for your parents. And so what's Mom's voice have to be?
Yes, they're good.
Yes, they're good. Look, they're wonderful. They're doing service. Of course, my parents are wonderful. My parents would never do anything bad. And no, my parents are not hurting me. You got to be kidding. So what voice does my mom have in this story?
Right.
She's always going to defend her parents,
Yeah,
right?
Of course.
So,
It just
and the
ushers-
other thing that happened when she goes to visit Monty is that she was a person who believed in fairness and righteousness, and so does Ruth. I mean, they're both very much like wanting to get their head together, partly to address their parents. I mean, what have they been taught? That being of service and right thinking about others is where it's all at. So all the family's grappling with what does that mean?
Yeah.
How do we do this right? You know, what values do we really carry forward and what really matters? And so Alice is trying to figure this out and keep the background of this too. We have just had the Second World War. What was the Second World War about?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so Mom has strong feelings about anti-Semitism and racism and all these things. She goes and visits her grandma, and she starts talking about the evils of anti-Semitism. Guess what happens? Guess what she finds out her grandma is?
Not a Nazi.
Well, as close as one can be to saying, "Oh, you don't understand. Then the Jews are evil. This is all because the Jews are so
Ooh, boy.
filthy, dirty." And so,
boy.
but she had already been told that Grandma's not doing well. And so here's this little 16-year-old going to have this big talk with her grandma, and she thinks her grandma's going to die. She's so upset. She goes, "Oh, I'm going to kill my grandma. I better not talk anymore." And this is also she's trying to do the right thing
Wow.
by her parents, and she's trying to do what her dad told her to do, go visit Grandma, and Grandma has this meltdown, and she just goes, I don't know where she goes from that, but she does have a letter, and she tries to write to her dad about, did you know this about Grandma? And then, of course, Grandpa has to write a defensive letter because this is his mom, and he owes a lot to his mom, so he has to kind of make her okay too. Everybody has to try to make everybody okay,
Everybody
so
has
it's
to
okay.
justify
Right,
something.
exactly,
Yeah.
and so you don't really understand, and Grandma's in a different world, and yes, don't upset her, but just understand that she's just
Locked into
so,
time. And,
so poor Mom is all in this whole big swirl of conflicting needs, and so is it any big surprise that she finds a man? She goes, "This will be my salvation. I've got this Don, and I'm going to marry you, Don. And I'm going to get away from all of this mess, and I'm going to create my own reality. I'm going to have my own family, and I'm going to do it my way, and it's all going to be good."
I guess my question is, where was Dawn? Like, how did Grandma meet? Like, I don't know how any of that relationship.
right, I know.
So
either.
apparently they were far enough away that they wrote letters to each other.
Yeah.
Like, daily is what it.
Oh
sounds
yeah,
like.
no, it is daily.
But you know.
Okay,
like,
how did they meet?
Yeah, like where.
Okay,
I wonder if Grammars can tell that story.
He was a square dance caller.
I don't know what that is. I know it's square
You
dancing.
don't know what that
you
is.
don't know
What
that
do they
square
do?
dancing needs a
No,
caller.
you don't. It's
Oh,
the
yeah.
one
that's
that
the
says
person
what
who-
to do.
Yeah, who tells you what to do?
Literally.
Like an
Literally.
auctioneer, yes.
Got it.
They call the steps.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Swing your partner.
They're keeping the rhythm. I mean,
Yes.
there's usually with square dance as compared to contra. There's a recorded song.
Okay.
So, and there's a repertoire of combinations.
Okay.
Yes. And all the dances have names, and there's history, and somebody wrote it, and sometimes they say, this is a chestnut, i.e. it's 25 years old or whatever, you know.
Oh.
But, the first thing that happens is they walk you through the combo.
Oh, yeah.
And so they walk you through, and then the music starts, and then he calls it, and with the
So
rhythm.
kind of like a conductor, you know,
Yeah,
like the people
exactly.
the people who are doing the music already know
and he
what they're
gives a
doing.
flavor to it, you know.
Okay.
It's it's a
It's
little
part of the.
little lilt, a little
Okay,
jazz.
so that's what he was doing. Okay, so that's where you saw.
So
it.
I even could, pull up the letter. I could even pull up the letter that where she's writing to her parents who are in Africa
Yeah.
about the night that she has basically gone to the dance and the beauty of that night, and she does remember this well, this moment of where she was the belle of the ball. There weren't very many women around, and she was one
one of the
of the
few.
ones that everybody wanted.
Uh-huh.
And so the two callers were both fighting over her.
Oh.
And both wanting to go out to a hamburger, because that's what you did on a Friday night. We went out to hamburgers.
Well, and what she describes is, since they would take turns
Can
calling.
Can Grammars tell?
Remember what you said about that, Mom?
Me too.
I don't know.
I want to hear Grammars'
I
voice.
love to hear people remember things that I should remember. Well, I never in my life felt that way before when I was so popular. I was so very popular. Yeah, and I don't know how old I was, but maybe
You were 15, Mama.
15?
Hmm.
Okay, I was 15. Anyway.
It was November. So you were just 2 months away from 16.
Oh, November.
Scandalous.
Well, but she had just had this big breakup.
With the person that she really liked.
Right, the person that she'll always carry a torch for.
Oh.
But I don't think he's come back from school yet, so she doesn't really know.
No.
I don't know that she was
How
so
older was
devastated
he?
yet.
How older?
How much older was he? He was a similar age. No, maybe. It couldn't
year
be.
or two,
Couldn't be.
maybe,
He must
if
have been
he's
2
off
years because he's
college.
off to college and she's not. So he was
Let's
older.
not worry about the factual
Yes,
details.
so tell us
About Dan.
about
Well,
that
well,
square
they just
dance,
the
Grammars.
place and time that
so what
Dan
does it
she's
mean
broken
to
up with
be-
Dan is
What
important.
does it mean to be popular when you're 15 at a dance? How does that work?
To be popular?
Yeah.
It was just like everybody was wanting to dance with me.
Oh, I see.
That's very exciting.
Mhm.
Very
So
exciting.
every dance, another person would
Yeah,
come up and
different
say, "Would you
person,
dance with
yeah.
me?"
People wanted to dance with me. Yeah, people kept asking me. So, but mostly it was Bob Dvorak. Mostly it was Bob Dvorak and Don, and then Dan, Don, Bob Dvorak.
But you knew Don somewhat from Circle Pines? I mean, at least all I know is your mom says, "Oh, Don, do you mean Mickey's Don?"
Well, true, he was. Does Mom say that?
Yeah, she does say that.
That's so interesting.
Yeah.
Well, before I met him, he was Mickey's Don.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
That's a subtle way of suggesting
Yeah,
he's
and
not for you.
I had a big portrait of him,
Of Dad?
of
Of Mickey. You had a big portrait of Mickey.
Mickey.
I know.
Signed by Mickey, with love to Mickey, from Mickey to Don.
I know. Well, you inherited Dad's
inherited
portrait of his
it.
old girlfriend, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
big, I know, and I don't know where it is.
I don't even know
It's
either.
still
And we
around.
don't
You
really
kept it?
know.
I mean, that's what's
We
so
don't. We
crazy.
don't
so
know
weird.
Sure, I
anything
kept
about that
it.
story.
All the painful things.
I mean, like when I jumped out of my last relationship, I burned most of it.
So Don was the caller. Who was the caller?
Yeah, both of them. They traded off.
Oh, I
They
see.
traded off Bob Dvorak.
Somebody has to be calling. So.
for Bob Dvorak and then Don. And every time one of them was calling, the other one would ask me to dance.
Oh,
So
wow.
I danced with the one that wasn't calling. I did.
Wow, you were important.
I did. Yes.
Belle of the ball.
Yeah.
The belle
The
of the
caller
ball,
was
that's
dancing with
exactly
you.
Right.
Belle
But
of the square
I think
ball.
there was like a month of her going out with different guys about that Christmas time. And just keep in mind that her correspondence with her mom and dad took time because they were in Africa and there was a gap between her writing and them getting the letters and then having time to answer. And so that's when that letter comes in of like, I can't keep track of all these men you're talking about. And it really wasn't looking, I mean, retrospect, it was only like 2 months where she was like undecided. And then she's just talking to dad every day about how,
And she
you know,
latched onto
I'll
that.
marry you. Yeah, she latched onto him quickly.
So,
So
which,
what happened after the square dance?
Oh, then it would depend on which one asked me first. Which one said they wanted me to go out with them for a hamburger. And so that would be either Bob Dvorak or Don. But as time went on, it was Don much faster than Bob Dvorak. And so it was Don. It was Don, the one that asked me for a hamburger.
Where's the hamburger joint? What is that?
And it was a place out in the country, and it was a place in what kind of lights do I want?
Oh, neon
Neon,
lights.
thank
Mhm.
you.
Neon lights.
Neon lights out in the country, and it was a place that said EAT, E-A-T.
Oh.
We know what those eat places, right?
Yeah, we do.
They're like everywhere.
I haven't heard of that.
You don't
My
know them?
family too.
Can they be going, the eat places?
Well, they're still there. I think we
And it
go
was-
up to northern Michigan to a reunion, and they're right near a reunion place, all by itself, is a restaurant called Eat.
Yeah,
It's
I
pretty
wonder
young.
if it was the same one, you know. If it was the same
It
one.
might have been the same sign company.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
The
Well,
concept to pull people in with the bottom line.
what would
What
you
are
like
we?
to do?
And as I recall, the place that we went was kind of like a porch, kind of like a porch to the main restaurant.
Sure.
I don't know why I think that way, but that's the way it seems to me.
Yeah, because hot summers you wanted to be out on a
Hot
porch.
summer as
And
well.
they usually didn't have air conditioning, so
Yeah.
it's the best place to sit.
Yeah. So, yeah, and I did love hamburgers then. I did.
Solid.
Hamburgers. Yeah. So that was,
You kind of like hamburgers now.
and it was there that he asked me to marry him,
Whoa.
Don.
See, I don't really know how that shows up in the letter because you've talked about it so long. I I don't even know where the first letter shows up as marrying because you do it very early. I think you might have just been 16. All I know is that you're just every letter, did I tell you that I want to marry you? Every single letter. You may have forgotten I told you that.
Oh,
And it goes both ways. He says that and she says it back like, did you know I'm going to marry you?
That's so sweet.
It was, yeah.
But maybe it seems really sudden because it had already begun in person.
Yeah, that's right.
'Cause did he move away, or
Well, he was going to school.
Okay.
Same school that
So
the boyfriend
he's
went
what?
to, that
Oh.
old Torch went to. Everybody went there. And Ruth, and actually Ruth and Dawn apparently were friends and saw each other quite often. And even Ruth said something about how, well, I was kind of interested in Dawn, but then he's yours.
Is this Champaign Urbana? Champaign?
Where William Penn is, no, it's in Oskaloosa.
Oh, William Penn.
Oskaloosa,
But it was a Quaker
Iowa.
school, but apparently it fell upon hard times and it was supposedly liberal. And then as we're even going through these letters, it falls from grace and it gets taken over by some evil people and it's no longer a liberal school and everybody has to leave and all the staff has to quit because they won't let interracial dating happen anymore. And everybody assumed it was be okay, in 1949, and it's not okay. And no, we don't have that kind of thing going on here. What will all the parents think about for all these students? The students won't come anymore, and so anyway, there's a big uproar,
Wow.
and all this whole big slew of mom's friends all leave or get disenchanted, but it's not one of those things that has been retained in our memory banks. The idea that William Penn fell.
Very interesting.
But everybody goes off all at once, and Dad is one of them there. But yeah,
Well,
the
that seems
connection
like-
between Ruth and Dawn was interesting because I had no idea that they knew each other. Yeah, from those early days. Yeah.
Is there more about Dawn?
Is there more about that?
Yes, tell us more about
I'd love
those
to
years.
hear like what you saw, what you experienced, how your love looked like, what was attractive about him, what compelled you to fall in love with him.
Oh my gosh.
He wasn't the other guy who.
He was
left.
not slow up on the burger uptake.
Right.
Oh, I can't help you there. I don't
No, but I think if we guided Mom towards something that has come up with the letters, Mom, I'm sorry to jump in here. People want one thing, but I think what's happened in our reading of letters, because we've been together reading for weeks and weeks, where we'll just kind of focus on Mom's love letters. I've kind of dropped my dad's out because I didn't think that was really as much of a voice as Mom's voice. So we kind of have spent a lot of time with Mom, and every letter has these things in it. Not only that I tell you I'm going to marry you, but you want to go on about what you say in every letter and how you feel about it, because I think that's relevant. That every letter you'll read, I'm going to marry you and be your wife and ever after, and what you think about that when you read that. Because you didn't say it to me at first, because I read some of the time, she reads some of the time, but she's told me that every time it hurts.
You're asking me difficult questions.
Am I okay?
I don't know.
Okay.
The intentions a person has don't always last.
Yeah.
What?
But her,
Well, the intentions that a person has
Oh, the intentions I
can't
have
always
to live with
endure.
him forever and ever.
and
See, that can't always, we have these
And
intentions.
it makes me a bit upset when I read those, myself saying that, because I didn't.
Right, and
And-
yet,
And it's hard. Whew, I don't want you to come in my mouth.
but you were so authentic when you were saying it, and you believed it so much.
I
And of
did.
course, the fact that there was a lot of swirling around you saying, you're too young, you're so young. You can't make that decision for the rest of your life when you're this age. And your parents said that, and your friend said that. And what happens when a person hears, you don't know what's going to be involved. It's way,
And of course you say, of course I know exactly how I feel.
Steal your resolve. Urgh.
yeah, and it just tightens it
Yeah,
up, right? It
yeah.
just makes you go, I'll show you.
right.
Yeah, so it was Dawn and Alice against the world. And everybody said, bad idea. And the more they said bad idea, the more Alice said, will you be with me, Dawn, in this, and we'll do this together, and we're in this. And so even if one of the letters ends with, even when you yell at me, it will still be okay. And you can see that my dad was showing his colors early on, because he wasn't a really peaceful guy, and I think he did plenty of yelling.
I know so little about Don. Your dad.
I know. Well, he died so long ago, because he died when Ian was a baby.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking about a long time ago. So he never got to be a grandfather, Well, he did. Well, Emily was like 6. So Emily has a little tiny memory of him like you would of somebody who dies when you're 6. And she remembers him taking her to Magic Mountain, I think. So some kind of amusement park. So doing a grandpa kind of a thing, right? But in terms of really having a sense of him, and there's no video of my dad. So, my dad was a product of his time, He was wanting to please people. He was wanting to, play his part, the role that he thought he was given. He was,
At any point in time?
in the Navy he was,
Yeah, because we have the
Yeah,
Navy photo.
yeah, yeah,
Growing
yeah.
up, I had that on the
Yes,
wall.
Yeah.
the Navy was in the Navy. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Before
did he?
Mom met him, right, Mom?
What?
It was before you met him.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So she
When
even,
I first went to his house.
Scandalous.
When I first went to his house, where his mother Hazel was and his father Elmer, the picture of him on the piano. He was in his Navy clothes, and he was. It it was a Navy, a sailor hat. Sailor hat and Navy clothes. I don't know what happened to that picture.
I don't know where it is either, but I'm just thinking about the fact that one of the things that came up in the letters is there's a draft that takes place. I think it's in 49, and I didn't realize, because you kind of think, well, the war was over in 45, so things were okay, but no, there was all this sense in the letters that there's going to be another war, and then you have the whole Korean thing happen, but there's a draft that starts, and you say at one point, I feel badly that Don wouldn't be eligible because he's already served, but all the other men in your life were very worried about the draft and had to decide how they felt about it. And you had the whole CO versus not so, conscientious objector thing versus the people who were going to just go ahead and go to war. But that was a huge deal. But you were already had chosen somebody that you didn't really have to worry about, and that made you feel very conflicted. Right? Because that wasn't something that you knew that it wasn't right for you not to be worried because you already had yours, kind of thing, if that makes any sense.
So he was like a year or two older? So
Seven?
he was
Seven.
seven.
And that's another reason that, of course, your parents, when they hear about him, they go, whoa, you should not be running around with men that old. You should be hanging out with people your own age.
Okay.
Right? One of the favorite things that people like to say. Like, 6 your own age. Like, they're safer.
It's a funny thought, isn't it? But
Yeah,
yes,
he was
an older man might not be safer than someone your
7
own
years
age.
older.
Yeah.
And I was. Yeah.
It's amazing how long life gets to be. How things you think will never change.
When you're getting to the end of it.
Or the middle of it. Yes, yes, yes.
Well, I can't hardly think I'm in the middle. I can't. Although I read on Facebook about women that live to be 100 years old, or even 110.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. How can that be? I don't know.
The years are
because they eat their
different.
vegetables. Are you eating your vegetables, Grandma?
They eat their vegetables.
Yeah.
That makes me think green beans. We have to get you green beans.
Yes. She does okay. It's one of her vegetables she'll eat is the green beans.
Yes.
Especially with
but-
almonds.
Yeah, that's the way I fix them with almonds. And we did have those just this week.
Oh my
We did.
goodness. You're
We
good,
did.
Laura.
I
You're good.
try. I really do try with all of that.
I know
But
she tried. She tries and
I
tries.
know.
And all of us are listening to your story and relating to it, Alice. It's not really about you. You're the centerpiece, but each one of us is taking your story and putting ourselves in it in some way.
88.
Mm.
That's how we relate to stories.
Yeah.
We're thinking
I
middle.
can't really believe it.
I bet you could use something to drink, Mama, huh?
Could maybe.
What could we get for you
Yeah.
What would you like?
Ice water.
Ice water?
Seems like a good idea.
today? I would love some ice water too.
I'm just a little bit worried about your time, so how are we doing with that?
Catherine said she set an alarm.
All right.